Now, gender-based violence is a very, very critical issue, and you may know that migrant women are at higher risk of, being victims of gender-based violence. And the reason for that is that they usually find themselves in these other countries where they usually lack work, lack documentation, and they do not know anyone, and there's no one to protect them. Now, I am your host, Lelethu, and today we will be discussing some of the challenges faced by migrant women while living in South Africa specifically. And we specifically look into the issue of gender-based violence because, as I've said, migrant women are at high risk of experiencing such. Please do not forget to join in on our social media conversations. Let us know what you think are some of the challenges that are faced by migrant women, specifically on the issue of gender-based violence. Today we have a very, very exciting guest. I personally know her. I usually call her Mama Lillian, but we have Mrs. Lillian Mukidi, who is the director at Umoja for Africa, an NGO that specifically gives skills to migrants. And she also is a part of a group, a women's group called Tusimame Wanawake, where she has actually seen and experienced some of the stories that women go through in gender-based violence, sexual violence, specifically migrant people. And she will be helping us unpack all of this with some of the stories she's seen, but she will also be sharing her story, which is very, very important to understand and to see actual live stories by people out there. Mama Lillian, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you, and I just want to say thank you to Africa Unite for inviting me and to all the viewers, and I say thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, it's a pleasure. Now, to start this off, Name, I want us to start by unpacking what is gender-based violence in your opinion, and from your side, how would you define gender-based violence?
When we talk about gender-based violence, for some people, sometimes it's a bit confusing, that word, just gender-based violence. But if we unpacking and to bring it to the level of everyone to understand it, it's an abuse. Any kind of abuse that you might be victim with, be it emotional, physical, and you can name them.
Sexual.
Yeah, sexual abuse, you can name them. So those are what I think we can relate to that as gender-based violence.
Yeah.
So the violence which include sexual assault, as I said, domestic violence, and other form of abuse. Those are this is how I'm saying that gender-based violence.
Yeah. Okay. So now, as a migrant woman and with your own experiences, why would you say then, because I made a very brave statement at the beginning, for you, in your opinion, why would you say migrant women are at higher risk of, experiencing gender-based violence, or are more vulnerable to experiencing gender-based violence?
When we talk about migrant, we can include this also refugees, because when it's just a general. So these people are coming in, first they're fleeing from any sort of wars, displacement, they're traumatized already. Then arrive in a new country, not knowing how the country rules, what are the policies of the country. So they also face a language barrier. They find themselves in a situation they don't know what to do. And they might be misleaded that there are certain kind of violence when we think it's right for that person to do it. It's just because you are ignorant, you don't know what really is the law or my rights. So what the migrants and refugees I mentioned are facing is because they don't really understand and know their right.
So that's the main issue, and that's the main reason why they're vulnerable. So even if they get abused, they don't understand that this is abuse.
Exactly.
They don't understand that this is gender-based violence. So, having said that and understanding that, then how do they, or maybe in your own experiences and what you've seen in, you know, in the group that you work with, how do they end up seeing the light, you know, finding out that I'm actually being abused, I'm actually experiencing gender-based violence? And maybe you can touch on a bit, you know, with your personal experience as well. You know, how did you notice, or how do you see that this woman actually notice that now I'm being abused and this is not okay?
I'll talk based on my experience, although I will discuss later about really what's happened to me. But in general, I would say, because I mentioned the lack of knowledge, which I think there's no much information, especially when refugee and migrants arrive, there's no much information they get to understand their rights. But in the meantime, because of the trauma they've been through, things in their subconscious feels like it's normal. It's only when we start talking to them, when we start, someone can share with them and bring them in a platform where they can understand, oh, actually that was an abuse.
Yeah. So usually then they realize afterwards that I was actually being abused.
Exactly.
So it's also very difficult to report while it's happening and hold the people doing it accountable.
So I've lived some experience where when sharing my story, then someone will come up and say, okay, then I never knew, because I also, this and this also happened to me.
Yeah.
But that is only after many years, then she could recognize that, okay, it was an abuse.
Wow, wow. Okay, please do not go away. Very, very interesting story here. Please don't go away. Stay tuned. Mama Lillian is still here with us on the show. We'll be looking into her personal story, and she'll be sharing us a very, very personal story about some of the experiences she's had on gender-based violence while living in South Africa. Now, please do not forget, on our social media pages, please join in on the conversations. Let us know what you think gender-based violence is and why you think migrant women are specifically more vulnerable to gender-based violence. At Instagram, we are at official Africa_Unite ZA. On Twitter, we are Africa_Unite_ZA. And on Facebook, we are Africa Unite. Please stay tuned. See you after the break. Welcome back. We are still discussing some of, you know, the challenges that are faced by migrant women while they stay in South Africa, and we're specifically looking into gender-based violence. And we have Mama Lillian joining us here today. She'll be sharing her story, her personal story, as to, you know, how she has experienced gender-based violence and how she has overcome and even managed to write a book about this. So please don't forget to join in on the social media conversations on our Instagram as well as Twitter and Facebook. Let us know what you think are some of the challenges that are faced by migrant women while living in South Africa, and why you think that migrant women are specifically vulnerable to gender-based violence. Mama Lillian, welcome back on the show. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Now, I want us to go straight right into it. I need you to tell us and our viewers, what is your story? You know, I'm sure you're going to inspire someone out there, because you even managed to write a book, and you're doing such amazing work, by the way. I've personally worked with her, and I've seen some of the work she's been doing, you know, assisting other migrants and, you know, young people as well as women specifically. And, you know, it's very inspirational and inspiring, and thank you for that and the work that you do. Yeah. But tell us, how did you get to South Africa? Where are you from?
Sure, thank you. To start, where am I from? Sometimes I found it difficult to say exactly where I am from, because I was born in Congo, from Zambian parents. So my parents were resident in Congo. I studied in Congo, and every holiday we used to go to Zambia. So I belong to the two countries.
Wow, and that's so interesting.
So I love both of them, Zambia and Congo. Then I had, when the time there were a lot of difficulties, and we found ourselves in this position where, actually, to look at me, people think I'm from Rwanda. And when Congo and Rwanda had problems, so they were arresting all the Rwandese. So I became first a victim of, because by the look out of my face, they say that I was a Zambian. I was Rwandese. They wanted to arrest me. Then they asked me to speak my mother tongue. Then I spoke. Then, you know, it was so such a traumatized experience.
I can imagine.
I was still young back then. Then I had to say that no, my life have to be safe. I need to leave this country because it was not safe actually. Then I left and proceed because some of my brothers were already in South Africa. So let me go and join my brothers. Then I came to South Africa through Zambia but that's not a story. I look at myself just being like an African because I've been living in South Africa now for 25 years.
Wow.
And I feel like I'm a South African. That's my 3 countries, Congo, Zambia, South Africa, made me being just a child of Africa.
Yeah.
And if I have to tell my story, you know, the way I understand gender-based violence and what I experienced in my life. At the age of 15, you know, I was so young, ignorant. Then I was studying at a boarding school. I came back on a holiday, and with a group of friends, we went somewhere, that not knowing exactly what will happen. You know, there were boys and girls. Then suddenly, people start running away. That's leaving the place, the room where we were. And there was this boy who I considered being a friend. Then actually he raped me.
Wow.
He forced himself on me. And I was so disappointed. I just want to mention that the value you have as a Christian came back with the strong Christian belief that made me feel dirty. So I left the place crying, but not even...
He was also the same age as you?
No, it was much older than me.
Wow.
I think it will be 4 or 5 years older than me.
So like 20?
Yeah, around 20s. Then, not knowing, I was just living my life. I just refused to interact with any other, but it was difficult to express and to say that to anyone.
And at the time, did you know that it was rape? Did you understand what had happened? Or was it just your Christian instincts that told you this is not okay, you know, and you obviously, like you mentioned, felt dirty?
I didn't know at the time that it was rape. For me, I blamed myself of going out of my father's place and go to that place.
Yeah.
For years, I was blaming myself. But it's only after 4 months, then I realized that I was not feeling well. I went to the hospital, and the doctor said, "You are pregnant."
Wow.
And that changed all my life.
Oh my gosh.
I was the most precious girl of my father, the very intelligent girls of the house. My father was very proud of me. So I look at the disappointment that my family will face.
Yeah.
And when my mom found out, so everything changed.
Yeah.
Everyone was against me. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Sometimes when I go to that story,
No
yeah,
problem.
that everything
Take your
is
time.
in the book. I think I relate my book, that everything in details is in the book. But
And you hadn't told anyone about it after it happened?
I didn't tell immediately. Then I was chased out. I was put out. I was on the street for almost 3 days. Just look at a 15 years girl, rejected, youth abused. No one didn't even have the guts to ask what's happened. I was thrown out, so not knowing where to go, I tried to kill myself. I couldn't, but because of the belief I have, I was just praying to God, why me?
Yeah. And you had told your parents that, no, I didn't, you know, I was abused. I didn't.
They didn't even give me a chance to say that I was abused. Immediately they found that I was pregnant. It was beating and throwing out. No one asked me what really happened to you.
Wow.
So I kept that. 3 days later, someone convinced my father to come back to the house. When I went back to the house, that's where I say I really face the gender-based violence beside the rape.
Yeah.
Because my father could not trust me. No one in the house could not trust me. Anything I would do, I would face beating, insult. I've been called all sorts of names. Prostitute, whatever, name them. So how are we going to get the courage to tell people what really happened?
Yeah.
So I just decided to be myself and face my situation. But one thing I said, I'm going to show to people that I'm not the person they think I am.
Yeah.
Eventually, I pursue with my study. Also at school, it was, on those days.
Wow.
But you must know I'm over 50. That's imagine 15. When I
Yeah.
was 15, it was a taboo to see a pregnant woman in school.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine.
I decided to do that.
Yeah.
I was laughed, insulted, mocked. But I faced, I said, no, one thing I want is to complete my study.
Yeah.
I completed my matric, I went to university, I completed my university. Eventually, I had my baby, which I love so much. It was her birthday yesterday. So she's, I love my girl.
Related to her?
And it's only later on, it was difficult for me to trust men again. It's only, I got married when I reached South Africa. And that man, for me, I said, is a savior. Because he came into my life, not just as a husband, also as a counselor. He wanted to walk with me, try to overcome, because I still had those fears in me.
Yeah.
Sometimes, okay, I will say it, but sometimes even in bed, if you want to touch me, I think of that
Of what
experience.
happened. And you never ended up even reporting that.
Never.
You just let it go.
Never, because I did not even know where to go.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I just decided, I need to write this story. And I said it took me 3 years. Every time I would write a page, I would be in tears and things. But I managed to write it. And
You're here and you're standing.
So on the day of my launch, that's when my family knew exactly what happened.
Wow.
It's,
wow.
I think, 40 years later.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have to quickly go to the ad break, but we'll continue with this story. Very, very interesting. Please don't forget to also join in on the conversation. The book is also here. Please have a look at it to see more about the story and to, get the full story for yourself. Don't forget to join in on the social media conversation. Let us know what you think are some of the challenges faced by migrant women, and specifically, let us know why you think migrant women are at risk or are more vulnerable to gender-based violence. We'll see you after the break. We'll look into, again, more in-depth Mama Lillian's story. Please stay tuned. Don't go away. Back, we are still discussing this very, very important topic and very sensitive one, looking into some of the challenges that are faced by migrant women living in South Africa. And today we specifically look into gender-based violence. And we have Mama Lillian in studio today sharing her story with us and sharing how she has managed to overcome some of these challenges. Please do not forget to join in on the social media conversations. Let us know what you think are some of the challenges that are faced by migrant women when they come into South Africa. And let us know what you think is the reason for the fact that they are more vulnerable to, gender-based violence and these challenges. Now, Mama Lillian, I want us to, before we continue with the story, very, very interesting story, can you just let me know what you think or what your thoughts are on the work that is being done by government in South Africa? Do you think enough is being done to protect migrant women, or you can just speak to women in general, when it comes to gender-based violence? You think the government is doing enough, or even just the institutions that are meant to protect women? Do you think they're doing enough to protect women?
Thank you so much for the question. But what I've realized that the South African government have done enough to protect not just migrants or women against gender-based violence, but refugee and migrant who experience gender-based violence face multiple barriers for seeking justice and protection. These barriers can include language barrier, as I mentioned before, fear of retaliation and or arrest, lack of knowledge about available resources and support services, and mistrust of authority. I just complete a training on first responder, where I think we realized that the only way we can help migrant and refugee is to place the first respondent agent in every area, or I'll say it, Yeah,
Yeah.
all the areas.
Yeah, all the areas.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry.
So do you think then an orientation sort of would help when
Exactly,
a
that's what,
migrant
yeah.
comes in?
It's not just orientation, but a person who understands abuse, who can be able, who's placed for someone to come and speak to. Because the one thing that people who have been through this experience, they need to speak to for one person.
Yeah. So maybe counseling
someone
services.
someone they can trust.
Yes.
It cannot be only a counselor. It can be a friend, but a friend who has experience to listen and to refer.
Yeah.
So that's what the training all about. So we are in a position to, if someone has encountered gender-based violence, they can just identify whom should I speak to.
Yeah.
And go to that person and open up. The more you keep your pain, the more you suffer. It's
Yeah.
better that you express yourself than the person who's prepared and trained can direct you where to go and what to do.
Yeah.
Because we have police station, and it's not just to go in the police. There's particular rooms that you can ask to go and speak about gender-based violence.
True, true.
So you have there are counselors where we can direct you. There are also clinics where we can direct you, where you can, if example of sexual abuse, they can do the test and everything before you go to the police. So there's so many things that is in place, but Migrant does not know.
Okay, no, I get that. Thank you so much for that. Now moving on to the more positive side, I know you've written a very beautiful book. The name of the book is Imani, and you mentioned earlier that your parents only found out that, the gender-based violence or the sexual assault that you had experienced had happened when you launched the book 40 years later. And I just want to know, what was the reaction from them? What did they say after the launch? How was the reaction? Did they maybe apologize? What happened?
It was unfortunately, when I launched the book, my father was normal.
Oh.
But I got a chance to speak to him on his bedside when he was dying. But I hope and pray that he did listen.
I'm sure.
But one thing I remember, he prayed for me because he could not speak. But my brother, who's representing our family, was present, and my other siblings. My brother was in tears.
Wow.
And he cried.
Wow.
And he came and apologized. I said, we never knew. So he keep on, even now, every day when he sees me, he say, no, for many years we did not understand you. We thought that you were a disgrace to the family. Now that we know, we have to show you more love. So, and he had to convince, I was born I'm still born in a family of 13 children. I'm the second born.
Wow.
So he had to call the whole family and say, no, this is the time we need to support our sister so that she can regain trust. She can feel loved again.
Wow.
And I'm experiencing that.
Great, that is amazing. Now, we unfortunately have to end this. I wish we could talk. I know we could talk forever. But just let us know, how can people get a hold of this copy of your book? And how do people get in touch with you and the work that you do? So firstly, how do people get a copy?
Yeah, the copy, I think you have to call me because I felt that this book, I didn't want to put it in the stores. It's only when I speak. Sometimes I speak in churches, in different conferences, then I do donate or I sell just to support that I can reprint more.
Okay.
But
so
normally, yeah.
So it's personal from you.
Yeah.
And do you have maybe a social media page for your organization, Umoja for Africa, and Tusimame, that people can get in touch with you and also maybe get a hold of the book?
So yeah, the Umoja for Africa, you can find us on, if you at Umoja for Africa, I think. On Instagram, we're on
Twitter,
Facebook page, Twitter.
Okay.
Just, click there and you'll find Umoja for Africa.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the amazing experience that you shared with us. Please do let us know what you think. Make sure you get yourself a copy of this amazing book to hear more about Mama Lillian's story. Please do join us next week as we discuss more about some of the challenges that are faced by migrant women living in South Africa. Don't forget to join in once again on the social media pages and stay tuned for next week. See you next week. Bye.